Hey everyone, so I went to the Kentucky Regional yesterday and we were able to cut to the top four and play out the top four. I ended up playing in the finals against Liam Kite. I won game one, he won game two, and then in game three, sadly, about halfway through the game, he found out that he forgot to put his expelled cards from game two back into his deck for game three. And he realized this like halfway through because he was trying to search for some Shining Shard daggers. And he realized he couldn't find them, and they were expelled. So a very unfortunate way to end the day, especially on a day that was a lot of fun. We had a lot of good players there, a lot of players that just really enjoyed the game and had fun throughout the day, even if the day didn't go their way. There was a point in the day after maybe top cut, there was 6 or 7 people still hanging out, and we were playing some music in the background because a lot of us were all familiar with each other, and we knew like every song that was coming on, and we would just break out and start singing in perfect harmony, by the way. I mean, amazing, truly amazing. If Argent Saga does not work out for us, I think we're going to take that group of guys on the road and, just form a traveling band, because I don't know who would not like to see a bunch of middle-aged men playing a geeky card game sing a cappella. I don't know who would not want to see that. So we do have a backup plan if Argent Saga does not work out for us. But I digress. Anyway, I wanted to bring this deck profile to you today and explain my card choices, because sometimes a deck a list of cards does not really speak to what the deck can do. So I wanted to bring that to you today. So we run Raine Sola. The whole reason I wanted to run this package with Sola was so I could run Finishing Ray. I figured Liam Kite is still very prevalent in the meta. It's one of the best decks, if not the best deck, so I wanted to find ways to really disrupt this. And being able to run Finishing Ray along with Yuki is something that I really wanted to do. That's why I ran Sola. As far as Raine goes, Raine is just another disruption on your opponent's turn without having to have any open shards, which was very beneficial throughout the day, as well as free generation of Reprobloom tokens. So this deck can sit back and kind of be a control deck, as well as a very aggro deck with the Reproblooms, depending on what your opening hand is. So now let's get into some of the card choices that revolve around this champion in the spirit. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the Blazewalker package. We run the Blazewalkers because it has additional synergies with your champion. Whenever you tap your champion, you get to expel units to deal damage. And if you expel Blazewalker units, you're going to get additional benefits. If you banish Arc, you're going to deal more damage. Lee and Raine help you put monsters on the field or generate card advantage by drawing. And also recycling all of your Blazewalkers or red cards back into the deck to hopefully draw them later. So Entreat is a great one-cost card. If you play it on turn 1, you can banish your Raine to generate a card to your hand, or even possibly hit a 4-cost or lower Dragon or Blazewalker unit and put it on the field to kind of be somewhat aggro early game. That's a little more rare to hit something like that off the top, but if it does happen, hey, great. Otherwise, you're just generating a card and you have your Raine banished to recycle it later with a couple of cards in this deck. So Entreat helps you do that. It also helps you search out for Arc if your opponent already has an established board to deal some damage, and then get the additional Raine in your hand to deal even more damage on your opponent's turn if possible. And then also banishing a Lee later in the game to generate an additional draw and recycle your Arcs or Raines that are banished. So the other Blazewalker spell we ran was Blazestriker Dive. I might bump this card up to 2, but it was that good. So basically, any Blazewalker unit that's expelled or in your hand, you can cast this spell, paying X cost. So it's either going to be 2 or 5, because Arc and Lee are cost 2, and then Raine is cost 5. And then you bring that Blazewalker that's either in your hand or expelled onto the field for the cost that you paid, and then it deals damage to a card that is directly in front of it. So card placement kind of matters with this deck, so please keep that in mind whenever you're playing these cards. I like this card, one, because it doesn't target. So if you want to get rid of a Reprobloom, you can bring back your Arc or Lead to deal the 1500. And Liam's discard boost, discarding a gear to give something plus 500, isn't going to matter. So that's nice. So you won't target, so it won't generate tokens and you'll clear it. Or the other use of this is Raine is a 3000 power unit. So if your opponent has a Juggernaut on the field, you can play this and Raine's going to deal the 3000 to the Juggernaut. It's not going to target it, so they can't Shard Raine. So that's also nice. It also takes out a Great Behemoth. So a lot of uses with Blazestriker Dive. It recycles your monsters. Very good card. Most likely bumping this up to 2. Now for our Blazewalker monsters. We do play the 3 Arc. He is your best Blazewalker. He helps you deal with any surprise plays that your opponent may have on their turn, even if you don't have any open shards. A lot of times people will see that you don't have any open shards and they'll think that their plays are going to be uninterrupted. Even if you play Raine, 1 or 2 turns before that, it's just something that they'll forget about. So Arc is great because it can deal upwards of 3000 damage. If you have 2 Arcs in your hand plus the Raine, Raine's going to deal the 1000 for banishing 2 cards, and then the Arcs are going to do the additional 2. So you can take out a Great Behemoth, which is going to be key. You can take out Reproblooms for just 1 Arc. So Arc is definitely your key Blazewalker, and he's one of the main reasons why you would run Raine as your champion. Your second Blazewalker unit is Lee. This is your Recycler. So she's very nice to recycle back in your Arcs that you have banished. She's also a decent card to play turn 2 if you don't have Reprobloom. Being able to get some damage in and then also being able to expel her on command to maybe recycle cards is always nice. I tend to keep her in my hand, but there are times where it's okay to play her on the field. And our last Blazewalker unit is obviously Raine. Very nice card. Just a free additional draw while also dealing 500 damage with your champion Raine is nice. Possibly hitting a Dragon unit or Blazewalker sometimes comes in handy to just put additional pressure on the board. Otherwise, being 3000 power is very relevant in this meta. Like I mentioned before, being able to take out a Great Behemoth or a Juggernaut with Blazestriker Dive is always key. Now this last unit is not a Blazewalker, but it plays into the Blazewalkers, which is Voidfire Dragon. I completely underestimated this card. I'm thinking about bumping it up to 3. It's that good. The Ruined ability to bring back a fire unit that's expelled is extremely key. There's a lot of times where you can manipulate kind of what you can bring back with Bone Scavenger, expelling stuff from your discard zone and then adding it back with the Voidfire Dragon. Very nice. Also recycling your Arcs, your Raine and Leiahs that are banished just to do additional damage with your Raine champion. Also very good. I never had this first effect really come into play, but the Ruined ability on its own is enough to warrant running possibly 3. This is also one of your targets that you can hit off the top with Raine to summon to the field for free. So next I want to talk about the fire cards that I played that don't really revolve around the Blazewalker package, but are still good just on their own. The first one is GZ. This card's been fantastic anytime I've played it. Being able to take out very big monsters for a cost 2 is great, as well as possibly hitting like a wind or fire tower to have non-targeting abilities to take out a Reprobloom is also very key. It also plays into our light package because we do run Yuki, so whenever GZ destroys your own tower, you can trigger a Yuki early, again to take out some Reproblooms with Yuki's target attack. Something that actually came up in this regional, which was really nice, my opponent was scouting early with Reprobloom tokens and hit a Dark Tower, and it didn't destroy it. And what happened late game was he had Vabriel's Final gifted, and I assumed it was for a finishing ray. So what I had done was I played GZ, targeted the Darkness Tower, and then on his draw phase, tapped GZ, and was able to pick out the finishing ray so he couldn't clear my board, and that's technically what ended up winning me the game. So very nice. Just being able to have a bunch of utility in a 2-cost monster that also breaks towers is great. Also, whenever you run Sola, you can get aggro with GZ. You can play GZ, attack with GZ, and at the end of your end step, untap it with Sola. So you can use his exhaust ability on your opponent's turn. So just a lot of really good interaction between Sola and GZ. We do play the one Rao Wyvern Rider. This card, I guess, could be used in correlation with the Blazewalkers because you can summon it to the field for free with Raine. But the whole reason we ran it was because of the quickness and its ruin ability, being able to put a token on the field. This is something that plays very well into Great Behemoth. So that's why I ran that. It's also a card that you can banish with your Raine, and then also get additional benefits by recycling it with Leiah back into the deck. But the main reason was the quickness, and then also you get the token to have additional benefits with your Great Behemoth. We then played 3 Rao Fire Bomb. Now, the thought process with this was to destroy a full field of Reprobloom with 2 tokens. The reason for this is a lot of times people will put their Reprobloom in the middle slot, and I'm going to show you what I mean by this. But after the first game you play against Reprobloom with Liam Kite, they're going to change the position that they put the Reprobloom, and then this card gets significantly worse. But I'm going to show you what I meant with this card, and then I'll come back to it real quick. So whenever Reprobloom is in the middle slot, you would put your tokens on the edge, right? So a token here and then a token here. Now, if you played Rao Fire Bomb, you would target your Reprobloom, their Reprobloom, deal 1,500. So whenever it targets, it generates the tokens. So you'll deal 1,500 to the Reprobloom, and then you'll destroy the 2 tokens for a cost of 2. So it'll take all of this out, right? And that's why this is good and leaves them with just 2 tokens. Now the problem is if they put the Reprobloom on the edge here and then generate their tokens over here, whenever you roll a Firebomb, you're only going to take out 1 token and leave 3. And that's why going forward, I would probably take this card out. It's very good in that first game if people aren't aware of where to put their Reprobloom. But games 2 and 3, they're going to catch on, and then this is really only doing 1,500 damage. So it was good today, but I will take it out going forward. So now for our light package. Like I had mentioned earlier, the whole reason why I wanted to run Sola was so I could run Finishing Ray. I just want to take out Reprolooms. I want to take out those full field of tokens. This card was really good all day. The 4 cost, surprisingly, is a little high. Not that it's bad or it should be lower, because this card's nuts. But there are times if your opponent goes first, this card can come a little too late. But other than that, obviously, yeah, it's a great card. I would not cut it, and I'd be foolish to. But surprisingly, the 4 cost was a little high sometimes today. We also ran the Yukis. This is great in tandem with GZ, being able to bring out for free. And also, if your opponent breaks a tower early with maybe something like a Corm Squire, you can drop this, and then it really puts pressure on them to not play their Reprobloom. Or if they did break a tower with a Reprobloom, you can bring it out and then target attack, take care of the Reprobloom. And then our last card was Vi, Matron of Miracles. Now, in theory, I really like this card. The Reprobloom tokens, you have the Rao Wyvern token, and then you have your Sola token from Soul Bursting. I have to say, though, that after playing this card, I would take it out. It really didn't interact with the deck very well. The problem is that you really need to use your champion Raine's ability for it. You need to be careful with it. You need to either target the Reprobloom and generate 2 tokens, and then on your turn, you have 2 tokens that you can use Vi, Matron of Miracles on. But if you don't break the Wind Tower early, this card gets significantly worse. And Liam Kite just does it so much better. This card in Liam Kite's nuts, because there's so many ways to generate tokens off the Reprobloom without using your champion's ability. So I would take this out with that being said, I would probably put in Hikaris just to generate more tokens and revolve more around Great Behemoth. So last up are our Argent cards. We ran the 3 Bone Scavager. This was in there for the Aragon matchup, but also it generates a lot of advantage with any Blazewalkers that are in your discard zone. You can banish them, get effects, and then just recycle your fire cards with Leiah. Being able to banish your own fire cards to give Leiah more targets early game is very nice. So Bone Scavenger is definitely a staple in any kind of Raine deck. We did play the 3 Reprobloom. Obviously, generating free tokens off of Raine is something that can't go ignored. There's not a whole lot of other ways to target him other than the next card I'm going to show you. But yes, this is one of the ways that the deck can be aggro. So we do play the 3 Reprobloom. The next card was Mistshaper. I really like this card in tandem with Reprobloom, being able to summon it for 2 costs, target Reprobloom, grab another Reprobloom, and generate 2 tokens is nice. There was a time in the regional where turn 5, I played a Reprobloom, then played a Mistshaper, targeted Reprobloom, got another Reprobloom. So I had Mistshaper, Reprobloom, and 2 tokens, and then I played a Great Behemoth for 1 cost. So that's something really nice. And then also Mistshaper would have been very good in the Aragon matchup if I played against it. Being able to copy a Bone Scavenger and have a second copy in your hand is very nice. The first copy of Bone Scavenger for Aragon is something that they can deal with, but the second copy coming in turn 4 or 5 is really harsh. So that's why I played the Mistshaper. So I did play 2 copy of Eccentric Visitor. The reason for this is there was going to be times where I wanted to Soul Burst Sola to get a token on the field to either go aggro or to make my Great Behemoth very cheap. In hindsight, I probably could keep this at 2, or I could take out 1 for Silver Watchwoman to have more quickness in the deck. But having 2 in there for the regional was definitely not bad. And then our last Argent card was the Great Behemoth. This card's fantastic. I would not cut this to any less than 3. I was running 2 originally, but then I just wanted to see it. It's also easy to get any additional copies out of your hand with Raine's ability to deal 500 damage. But that being said, this is probably the core of the deck outside of GZ Yuki. And that's also why I would run Hikaris in here instead of the Vi's, because I wanna focus more around the Great Behemoth than Vi Matron of Miracles. So now for our shards, we run the 6 basic shards as always. Because we were running Sola, we ran the Hallowed Crystal. This actually came into play a decent amount today. It's something that a lot of people forget about. So also, please keep that in mind whenever you're playing, the Hikaris that I would put in, or your Light Tower tokens, or your Sola tokens, that you can bump them up to, 2,500, or if you got multiples, 3,000, 3,500. And that does come into play. And then we ran the Corona Shard. So still the best shard, taking out any problem cards like Great Behemoth or Iskandar if he would come down late game. Still the best shard to play for sure. We also ran the 5 standard towers. Nothing to say about here. I did side the alternate fire tower though, and we're going to get into that right now. I'm going to show you the side deck and some of the choices. So for my side deck, I wanted to focus around 3 decks. That was Liam, Kite, Jamal, Sola, and then Aragon Corona, or Aragon Fizzy, or Aragon Tux. So with that being said, we're going to go through it in that direction. So for the Liam Kite matchup, I sided 2 Phoenix Flamestrike. I will bump this up to 3, and I will main deck it. This will go in for Rao Fire Bomb. This card, I have to say, is probably the best field wipe in the game right now. It is better than Finishing Ray because it's a 3 cost or lower. And the whole reason you're running Finishing Ray, I would say that Finishing Ray gets additional benefit by being able to take out a Juggernaut or a Great Behemoth. But being able to Phoenix Flamestrike, the whole reason you run Finishing Ray, I think, is to take out Reprobloom and its tokens. Phoenix Flamestrike does this, and it does it better, especially in Raine. You're dealing the 1,000 to all of their units, so it doesn't hurt you at all, where Finishing Ray does. On top of that, if they do not have a gear equipped to their Reprobloom, you're going to force out the Liam. Now, what happens with that is whenever Liam targets Reprobloom, he's going to generate tokens. So this is on the stack first. Liam's ability is second, targeting the Reprobloom, which all generates before Phoenix Flame Strike resolves. Whenever they boost Liam, Reprobloom with Liam's effect, you can then chain your champion Raine to target Reprobloom to deal the additional 500 by just banishing one card that Liam is boosting him by. He'll generate all of his tokens before then. You'll have the 500 damage on Reprobloom. When all that resolves, Phoenix Flame Strike will do the additional 1,000, dealing 1,500 total to Reprobloom, taking out all of the tokens and Reprobloom. Fantastic card. Would not play less than 3. If you splash Corona in anything, I would highly suggest running Phoenix Flame Strike at 3. Love this card all day. And then I also sided the Tower of Surging Flames. I don't know how I felt about this card. In theory, it's really good, early game especially, but knowing, being able to, well, having to show this to your opponent when you side it in, they're going to take some precautions, maybe by boosting something with Liam, like a Reprobloom, or putting like a Caliber on it to put it to 2,000 is something that is really going to hurt you. So I don't know if this is worth it. So for the Jamal Sola matchup, I decided to side 3 Silver Mist Phoenix. This card's very good, can't be targeted, and then it also replaces itself by just paying 2. I really like this. I think it's one of the staple cards to side against Jamal Sola for sure. I also sided Brant for the Jamal Sola matchup. Being able to get over a Juggernaut is very nice, and then if you have 2 or less towers, he gets quickness and can't be targeted. So he's like a beefier Silver Mist Phoenix. So that's why I sided that. I also sided Dance of Blades. I like this because, first of all, it's very cheap. It's a 1 cost. It's insta-cast, and it deals the 500 damage, so obviously you're going to try and take out Phantasmal Guards with this. Whenever you're swinging in, they'll try and block. You can chain Dance of Blades, take that out, get your attack through, and then also get a 1,500 Knight token for just 1 cost. This plays into your Great Behemoth, and then it also is enough damage from your token to actually break towers, possibly on turn 1. So yeah, that's why I ran the Dance of Blades. I did side this in and actually came into play. And then the last card I sided for the Jamal Sola matchup was Ashborn Conjurer. Just being able to put this on board and get any kind of token whenever they play a spell was the theory behind it. I never got to use it, and there were times where I had it in my hand against Jamal Sola, and I still didn't play it. So I don't know how I feel about this card. In theory, I was really liking the Ashborn cards, but I don't know if it's beneficial going forward. So for the Eragon matchup, I sided the Silverstone Sentinel. This one's pretty obvious. Anytime they activate Eragon, you're going to be able to expel a card or draw a card. And then I played Transfiguration Master. Being able to banish their Shade of the Silver King is very nice. Also banishing Hoenna, also very good. So that was the thought process behind Transfiguration Master. And then the last 3 cards that I ran for the Eragon matchup was Charisse. The theory behind this was turn 1, let me start over. The theory behind this was it's essentially 6 copies of Bone Scavenger. Being able to have this turn 1, exhaust, get the counter, and then on your next turn, whenever you have 2 shards up, you can pay the 1, exhaust it, and grab a Bone Scavenger. That's very rough on your opponent, and then if they don't clear it, you can get an additional copy of the Bone Scavenger 2 turns later, or you can search for Reproblooms, things like that. Also, Silverstone Sentinel, Transfiguration Master. And in theory, that's what all of this was for. I never played an Eragon, so I didn't get to side this in. But anyway, guys, that is my deck profile. Those are the thought processes behind the cards, the things I would take out. And yeah, I hope you enjoy this. I hope it's been beneficial. Like, comment, subscribe. And as always, Zeppelin out.